Welcome to Binah Says, a podcast created to reveal the wisdom within everyone.
How my story unfolded has consistently had an underlying story of what is a woman's place in this world. What does it mean to have power as a woman? I literally had the life that my 5-year-old self could only dream of. And then something hit me like a train hit into me, and I was like, what's missing? I can't even fathom why this God character would let somebody suffer so much. And so I rejected God and I rejected religion, and I went purely into logic. I can look back and see the beauty in every pain point in my life completely. But it took some time, and it took finding my way back to a relationship with God. Whatever you create, you have to put continuous care into it. And I think the closest way to have it all is if you are co-creating with Source. Every day I walk through this life in awe, genuine awe. I see the beauty in every part of this life.
So Natalie,
Yeah.
welcome to the Binah Says podcast.
Thank you for having me. I'm happy to be here.
Thank you for your presence, your light. I feel very blessed to know you in such a short amount of time. I think we've connected on a level that is much more beyond the physical. I think you told me your life story in the back of an Uber in New York City.
Yes.
And it was not something that we had ever spoken about. We met on Rosh Hashanah, right?
Yep.
We were in Rosh Hashanah, New York. That's when we really
connected.
But we had been taking classes together at the Kabbalah Center in Miami forever, since the beginning when it opened. And we always floated around each other, and then after the new year, everything just made sense. It clicked. Yeah, your story. So it starts in New York. You were born in New York.
My birth, I think, I think you and I were discussing earlier, I think, the longer you live, the more you can connect the dots of your entire life story and see that you've been given these experiences that will point you in the direction of where you're meant to go, right? And how you're supposed to show up and serve. And I laugh at my birth story because it's revealing to who I have become today. And so I am the youngest of 4 girls. My father came over from Turkey when he was 22. He went to Parsons for fashion design. And my mother is of kind of Czechoslovakian descent. They met each other on a subway. She changed subways because he hit on her and she got intimidated. And then he found her 6 months later. He kept taking every different train to find her again. And they fell in love. And then they got married and they started having children, and they had the first, I joke, growing up, it felt like we were the Spice Girls almost, we each had an identity and we were put in that box. So the oldest was Jen, and she was Smart Spice. And the second was Madeline, and she was Posh Spice. And next came Mindy, who was Sporty Spice. And then I came 4 years after Mindy. And my mother would tell me this story, which I don't know why she told it to me, but this is how this all unfolded because she needed to, right? That all of my father's family showed up to the birth, to the hospital in black. And they were all in mourning to the fact that my parents had given birth to a 4th daughter. The travesty of having to raise 4 girls. And that was my entry into the world. And I laugh about it now because it set the tone for my story, and how my story unfolded has consistently had an underlying story of what is a woman's place in this world. What are we as women? Is there only one type of woman? What role is the acceptable right role to be a woman? Acceptable to men, but also acceptable to other women. And then what does it mean to have power as a woman? What is power as a woman? And how does one tap into that? I look at the arc of my life and all the different ways my life kind of unfolded. And I'm now 43, about to turn 44. I'm an Aquarius. My birthday's soon. And I look at all of it and feel really blessed to be where I am at this given moment, and feel that I have ideas to share that might help other women find their way into their power.
I love this. Wow. Your soul's been on this journey. Can you tell us a little bit about growing up? You were raised in a certain faith, right? There was a faith in your home. What did that look like?
Yeah, so I was raised, my father belonged to this very, very small sect of a Christian Orthodox religion that originated in the Fertile Crescent 2,000 years ago. And it was a very insular community that kind of lived in that crescent, and his people ended up in the southern portion of Turkey, and then emigrated to the United States in more recent history. And the Sunday masses were like 3 hours of Aramaic. It was actually a beautiful, beautiful culture, beautiful traditions. And as a very young child, I had this like innate propensity to spirituality that I don't even think my parents or my three older sisters had. I like built an altar in my room myself, and I would like put like the statues of like Jesus and like the Virgin Mary, and like I loved it. And I would go to bed every night and I'd like talk to God. And every time we ate, I would make the entire family pause and I would sing this like really quirky song, God is great, God is good, and we think it's for our food. And there was like a cha-cha-cha at the end, and I'd like do jazz hands. Um, and they would just sit and like allow me to like be myself. And it was very cute. And my dad's culture was just so beautiful. It was very communal. It was filled with like tons of food and traditions and celebrations, all tied into this religion. The religion was the anchor to which all the rest of the culture formed outside of it. And it was beautiful. And around the time when I was 11, my father got very sick, like out of nowhere, very, very quickly. And it was almost kind of like this moment of, when you're in the womb, you're fully connected, you're safe, you're fully connected, your needs are met, and it's just so beautiful. You're connected to the mother, and it's kind of like the soul when the soul is connected to source, right? And for me at 11, when he got sick, it was like the disconnection that happened. It was like the separation from the womb when you're like out and alone, when the soul is separated from source, and everything changed very quickly. So he got very sick, he nearly died, and he wasn't healthy and wasn't quite ever the same again until he passed when I was 19. And my mother then had to fall into the role of managing his business, taking care of him, taking care of 4 growing girls. And it was a lot. There was constant stressors on the family. There was scarcity. There was constant trips to the hospital, trying to keep him alive. And this vibrant culture of his family, for whatever reason, and they're wonderful people, but I think it was a lot for them too, to watch this and to be a part of this. And so over those years, as he got more sick, we lost them. And so that entire experience was very lonely and alienating and very disconnected. Connection is kind of everything in this reality. You're either connected and connected to the creator, connected to fellow humans, connected to nature. There's so many ways in which we can be connected. But the more you're disconnected from the creator, from community, from nature, all of these ways you're disconnected, the more isolated and lonely, the more dark reality is. And so those years for, I think, my entire family were really challenging, but they were also really formative for who I became later in life. What I will say is when he passed when I was 19, I was so disillusioned with religion and with God. And I basically looked at this concept of God like that old man in the sky who judges you and says whether you're good or bad and you're going to go to hell or heaven. And I was like, I am so not into this concept. I can't even fathom why this God character would let somebody suffer so much. To watch my father, who is a beautiful human, live in so much physical and emotional pain for so long and then pass was really hard for my mind at that time and my level of awareness to be able to make sense out of. And so I rejected God and I rejected religion and I went purely into logic. Like, I was going to be really logical. I was going to read every data point and study. Like, who cares about this God figure? Like, it's all science. It's all science or nothing. And for years, I lived a life of logic and I felt really clever. I felt really intellectual.
What were the sources that you received your logic from?
I mean, mainstream news, like CNN, like the Wall Street Journal. Like, I got newspapers delivered to my door, and like I kept up on all the news and the politics, and all the divisiveness of the world, and like I got really passionate about politics, and I picked sides of like this side or that, and I was like a young idealist who, wanted to change the world, but through the prism of like the political divide and the level of rightness and wrongness. Well, this side is right, so that side clearly must be wrong. And if I'm on this side, I'm on the side of right, and then that side's the side of wrong, So all this very logical, dualistic, linear thinking. And that was fun. But then I had this beautiful life.
What were your desires at this time in life?
When I was younger, it was just pure survival. I was in survival mode. When I was in high school, it was time to apply for college, and my 3 older sisters were able to go away, and my father was right about to pass, and my mother was like, you can't go. You have to stay local. We're not giving you an option. And for me, I was constantly in the role of the caregiver, and it was, we need you close by to home. You can go to college, but you can only go to this one that's closest to our home. And we also need you to stay here and take care of us. And so my desire at that time was just survival. It was, how do I get to a point of saving these people or helping and supporting these people and eventually building my own life? So for a lot of those years, it was survival. Not to get into the nitty gritty, my father passed my freshman year of college, and then soon after my mother had stage 4 breast cancer. And so that story arc continued where I was the caregiver. And when I was younger, I think there was a ton of resentment. In my age now, I'm so glad that I was able to be a part of that process and support my family. And also I see the gifts it's given me and how I am able to show up as a holder for this world, for my family today, for my community at large, and for serving the Creator in ways that I think can help this world. I can look back and see the beauty in every pain point in my life completely. But it took some time, and it took finding my way back to a relationship with God.
So when you look at it now, and I'm sure you were at the time asking, where is God? How could God be doing this? What role was God playing there that you now recognize?
This is so perfectly timed. The last class Ariel was teaching was actually about asking for help, and that in our loneliest or most painful points of our life, a lot of times we don't feel held or supported, but actually the Creator is always there with us. I think the biggest lesson is that you can never do anything alone. You always need help. And whether that's help of a fellow human or help through a relationship with the Creator and faith, it's so limited to think that you as one single human in this giant cosmic awesomeness, that you have the capacity to control, fix, and save everything all on your own. It's not possible. I can see fully every single very painful part of my life, and I've had tons. This sounds ridiculous, but I'm 43 and I feel so grateful because I've experienced what I can explain as almost every feeling of life. Like, I've experienced scarcity, I've experienced abundance, I've experienced pain, I've experienced pure ecstasy, I've experienced like loss and growth and loneliness and full vibrant community. I feel so blessed to have experienced so much of it and to know the contrast of what it all feels like. Every single time I was in the most painful of points in my life, every single one propelled my growth. Every single one made me a better human. It made me stronger. It made me more compassionate. It made me more supportive. It made me have larger, grander perspective. Every experience of pain I have gotten through has always made me a better human in the end. You and I both study Kabbalah, and we know that pain is where the gold is. And there isn't a day that goes by that I don't wake up every morning and I say, thank you so much for bringing my soul back to my body. You've given me a gift to be able to do this one more day. I get to grow, I get to serve, and you've designed this day perfectly for me, and it's going to be perfect. However that transpires, it's just for me. Thank you. We know that we every day can tap into the gratitude and see the beauty in everything, even the parts of the day that don't go as planned, but we know they're for our growth. I am not a masochist. I'm not out there seeking pain. I am grateful every day for this beautifully abundant life I get to live. However, I'm not naive to the fact that if pain comes my way, I'm ready for it because I know what's on the other side is more growth. I know it's part of this growth curve of life that we all get to endure. So the pain for me is like, I just look back at all of it now and I'm like, it was so beautiful. Like I see the beauty in all of it.
I love that. I think, before Kabbalah, I was practicing gratitude in certain ways. I would wake up in the morning, and this was a time where I was suffering and I needed to bring gratitude into my life. So I'd write little notes every day before bed, and I'd put it in a jar. And I actually have jars for like 6 or 7 years. But with Kabbalah, recognizing, being grateful for the moments where, not just in the joyous moments, right? Like something amazing happens and you're grateful, but as you said, when there's pain, when you're hurting, being grateful that this too is the creator. It's not just in the good moments. And I use a silly example, but like in work, there was someone that wanted our services. And I've been meditating with the creator, bringing consciousness more into what I'm doing in my work outside of podcasting. And the creator, I said, brought us a client. And so I thanked the creator. Thank you, creator, for bringing us this client. The next day, the client changes their mind and decides to go with another company. And in that exact moment, I didn't even hesitate to say, this too is the creator. So this must be a protection of some sort. And before, I would have, gotten upset or wanted to control the situation, trying to, fight for the client back. But now I just have this greater understanding of the creator presence in everything that I'm doing. And I know that I will attract the clients and the people in my life that I'm meant to work with,
that are aligned, that are meant to happen.
So there's this release of control, and then this appreciation of good and the bad, and not always the good is good and not always the bad is bad.
I think in our limitedness, we prescribe what is good and what's bad. And usually what's good is what's comfortable and what's bad is what's uncomfortable. And what's good is, let's say, will get me the deal faster, right? Or what's bad is like that deal falling through. And you're seeing this, and I've seen this now too, in my lived experience, is that every time it doesn't go according to plan and it doesn't go the good way, the sooner you say, this is for the best. I, in my limited nature, do not see the big plot, because there's always a much bigger plot to all of this than we could ever fathom, dream up, imagine. But I trust and know that ultimately it's for the best. The best comes even sooner.
Back to timing of this conversation, I shared with you before we started that I just finished the book, Many Lives, Many Masters.
Which is a very good one.
My mom is a marriage and family therapist. She's read that book, has recommended it to me. I needed at least 3 or 4 people to recommend this book to me to finally be, say to myself, I need to read this book. Yeah. And it was hands down in the top 2 books that were the hardest to put down for me. And it's really interesting. you were talking about logic earlier and how you went into this mindset of logic, rejecting, the source, God. And it's so interesting to see the evolution of I think it's Weiss, Dr. Weiss.
Dr. Weiss, yeah.
Right from the lens of this scientific, logical reasoning, medical background. He's a psychiatrist from the head of psychiatry at the University of Miami, writes a book about spirituality and accessing these spiritual realms through one of his patients. And it was mind-blowing because it's like for the first time seeing that connection between both worlds and not having to have all the answers, because the scientific method is very, step by step. It's very logical. But being able to just suspend that and allow yourself to take in what the universe is giving you and not question, it was just so eye-opening.
I think to be able to live in the logic and in the unseen is a beautiful place to live. To not reject logic, logic has a place, it's what this reality is, but also to not reject the unseen. And I think historically, the camps have been very divided. You either lived in the world of logic and you criticized those who lived in the world of the unseen as ignorant or woo-woo or foolish, right? Or you lived very much only in the world of the unseen and you looked at the people of logic and said, well, they're just like those studies and any of those can be replicated. The both sides, but in that, every time we have two opposing sides, we're living in the linear, we're living in the duality, we're living in the one truth, one false. And if I'm on this side, I'm inherently always on the side of truth. Nobody ever says I'm on the side of false, right? And inherently, then you make the other side false. And so I like this conversation because I'm a very quirky Aquarius, you know this, and my mind loves to kind of dabble in so many places. It's like one of my traits, but I kind of look at technology today as being a mirror to the evolution of consciousness. And so we've had basic computing for years, which was showing where human consciousness was. It was linear, it was dualistic, it was a 0 and a 1. One truth, one false, on, off, nothing in the middle. And as humans, we've existed. We have a two-party political system. There's right and wrong. There's hot and cold. It's a duality. And what I love about the time we're entering right now is this beautiful juxtaposition of moving into, let's say, quantum computing, where you have a 0 and a 1, a true and a false, but then you have a qubit, which elevates the two together, and then you could have multiple truths at the same time. And that, I think, is what is taking place in consciousness. And it's a direct mirror of what is taking place. Both consciousness and technology are just mirrors showing each other where they're at. But I also think there is something said about the mind of the masculine and the mind of the feminine. And so the mind of the masculine, and this is not to say one is better or worse, but the mind of the masculine is very linear. It is, I get from point A to point B. And the mind of the feminine is very quantum. It connects multiple different points at the same time because it's multitasking. And you look at men and women and you have these differences. And I say men and women loosely because you and I both know that in every man and every woman, you have a feminine side and a masculine side, right? And so what energy are you tapping into more? But roughly the stereotype of the man who tinkers in the garage all day trying to fix the one thing, that's very linear thinking, as opposed to the woman who is like multitasking 300 things at once and getting it all done is very quantum. Yeah. And where overall consciousness, I think, is evolving at a fast rate right now is for 2,000, 5,000 years, whatever you want to call this history of humans. It's been very linear and it's been very masculine. The structures through which we have existed they've been structural and blocks stacked upon each other, and that's very masculine. Whereas where we're evolving now is very quantum and perhaps more feminine in nature. And so what will that look like, and what voices will come to be? And if you look at the history of religion or spirituality, of philosophy, of how the world has existed for 2,000 years, those individuals who were able to tap into greater consciousness ahead of their time, they were men, they were prophets, they were sages, they were messiahs, they were, saints, right? And the feminine voice from that leadership was pretty quiet. I think if there was a feminine voice, she was burned at the stake historically. But I think as this evolution is happening, and there is a pendulum swing as all of this reality exists, is there are now there's a need for more feminine voices to express how we see things, and not one feminine voice, but many feminine voices. Because to be a woman and to be feminine is to be dynamic. We are not stackable. We're not blocks. We're round. We're curvy. We're dynamic. We're multifaceted. To think that there's one right way to be or one wrong way to be is very linear. It's very masculine. To be feminine, to be a woman, is to have that awesome realization that, oh my gosh, there are so many beautiful ways to be a woman. There's so many ways to tap into the feminine. There's not one right or wrong way. And I think it's for all of us to start having these conversations of celebrating each other's femininity and each other's power, however that's expressing itself. To not kind of say you have to be a stay-at-home mother to be a good woman or a good mother. Or to also say, well, if you want to be in your power, you have to have a corporate job and make a lot of money and give that up. I've kind of now had this beautiful life where I've gotten to live in many worlds. I've lived in the world of the stay-at-home mom. I have friends who are like at the top of their game in hedge funds. I know women of all sorts. I have close friends in every facet of life. And there's been this underlying tension amongst all of it to say that one way is right and one way is wrong. And inherently, it's always my way is right and your way is wrong. As opposed to, I think we need to step back and celebrate what each of us brings. And I think the other missing link to this entire puzzle is, I have a friend who's just brilliant, and she was actually on a podcast, and she's so successful, but she's also a mom. And she's just like, this myth of like, you can have it all. You can't have it all. And I think that was a really important thing to say. But I also think you can't have it all if you're disconnected from source. Mm-hmm. And I think the closest way to have it all is if you are co-creating with source. If you're saying to the creator and admitting, I am just human. I'm human with your spark in me, but I'm also just human. I'm human. I'm limited. Please co-create with me. Please help me. Let's do this together. And when you have that really dynamic connection, mind, body, and soul with the creator, that's when magic really happens. And that's when you really get into the limitless. And I personally believe you can have it all. I think there is no limit at that point. You're limited when you are disconnected from the creator. But when you're truly connected to the creator, when you're able to surrender and pull the creator into your physical body, into your spirit, into your soul, into your heart, into your mind, into your womb, like as a woman, and this is like to pull the creator into your vagina, there's no limit. There's literally no limit. And I want for women to start tapping into that divinity, to start tapping into that power, because I can tell you it's awesome. And every day I'm like, I am blessed. Wow. And every day I walk through this life in awe. genuine awe. I see the beauty in every part of this life. And in seeing the awe in everything, my life is awesome. And I say that humbly, knowing that in the flip of a switch, the Creator can take everything that the Creator has given me access to away, because there's something for me to grow through more. And so I'm open to it.
Mm-hmm.
But to truly, truly, truly leave, and again, I'm an Aquarius, so you see, this is how my mind works. It goes like in webs and circles.
I love it. Keep going.
To truly, truly tap into that divinity and leave robotic nature, you have to be connected to the Creator. There's no other way. And it is the way. People do mindfulness and like manifestation and like water bowls, and there's, I mean, oh my God, Instagram is so good, but like there's every single plot to like, how do you manifest riches, wealth, good health, all of this. All of that works to an extent, but what propels it out of the box of limitation that we live in into the limitless is you have to have a connection to source, and you have to have a relationship with the Creator, a daily relationship with the Creator, where you are constantly working against your robotic nature. You're constantly tapping into the Creator, asking for help, having conversations, talking about your desires, and having faith that it can all come true. And that's really where the gold is. I could keep going.
Couldn't have said it better myself. I mean, so many little pieces of what you said have stuck with me. And for example, my mom, watching my sister become a mom this past year has changed my perspective of women and our power, like you're saying, and our ability to create. And I remember my mom said to me, after you see a woman give birth, there's no doubting that there is a source that created everything, that there is a God, that there is a Creator. It would be impossible to deny the miracle that you witness. And Ariel has said this before, in conversations we've had about Kabbalah. He says, that painting on the wall had a creator. Who made it? This chair, who made it? How did it come into existence? It had a creator. Someone designed it, built it, manufactured it. So how are we living a life, not believing that some force, some energy created everything we possibly are seeing and experiencing, and even that which we don't see or experience physically, which is the universe. Talking about, again, creation, and everything we do is a co-creation. Rick Rubin talks a lot about this, how everything we do, we should do it with the intention that it is, what we're doing is a devotion to source. And that is how I've been living life, more recently, definitely within the last 2 years. And it's beautiful to see what I've been able to co-create with God, like this podcast. I remember releasing this podcast, and it felt, I haven't experienced childbirth, but I felt
created something.
I did feel like I was giving birth to something.
You did.
And it's wild to think of that, right? Like first it's a thought, and it's something that has to be watered over and over again. And then you actually have to take, steps to bring it into this world, and it consumes you, and it's a piece of you that then lives outside of you, which is creation.
It's beautiful. There's creation in literally everything. And everything that you create too, you have to put care into. So there's no such thing as you create it and then it's done. There's, it's said that the Creator is constantly speaking creation into existence, and that at any point, if the Creator stopped speaking, this entire reality would just poof, disappear. And it's a really beautiful metaphor for whatever you create, you have to put continuous care into it. So whether you create a life as a parent, you will continue to put care into that child until the day you die, right? Or if you probably believe like you and I do, that you will continuously do so even after you're not in your physical vessel, right? But creating, let's say for you, this podcast or a business, you don't just create it and then it's done. It's like that's when the work begins. You have to keep putting care into it. Even let's say a relationship. So like a husband and wife, you don't get married and then you're like, oh, I bought the cow, now I get the milk for free. Like we're good. That's when the care starts. It's like a house. You don't buy the house and then you say, we're done. We don't have to do anything. You have to fix the pipes. Every 10 years it needs a new roof. Like you have to spray for rodents. Like everything that is created. It's one thing to say there's creation. The most important thing that I think is sometimes neglected, and especially in relationships, romantic relationships, let's say like soulmates, two souls, is that care is the most important thing to keep it going. And it's the care that is the process of life. Creation keeps happening, but it's how do you care for that creation throughout life? And so we're part of creation. We've been given this gift to be part of the ultimate creation, right? Who's like the biggest artist that ever lived? It's God. It's the creator that created this incredible art installation through which we get to come into it and see, taste, smell, hear, touch, experience pain, experience beauty. We get to grow in this, right? It's beautiful. It's like tragic and beautiful at the same time. It requires care though. And so when you become a human who starts tapping into spirituality and tapping into this wisdom, there is something that transpires where you start realizing, this is awesome. How do I care for it? And how am I going to show up in this world to care for this beautiful creation? And that's then what leads most people to a life of service. And it's not just to say like service, like how am I going to go be a missionary and like spread the gospel or like volunteer all my time, but it's how am I going to serve this creation? Am I going to create a business that adds value to this human experience? Am I going to create a medicine that cures a disease in this human experience? Like, how are you in your own divine, unique expression? Like, how is Natalie Emerson in her own unique expression going to care for this beautiful creation she gets to be a part of? How is Sabrina going to do it? And that's actually like this, the nuggets of this entire, it's the process. The whole thing is a process. It's not the end point. It's not like the getting married. It's not the finally buying the home. It's not the starting the business. It's the process of what happens through it. Mm-hmm. And that's like the beauty of this life experience we get to live.
I remember you told me once that, you know, there were these boxes that you wanted to check in life. Yeah. And you reached a point where you had checked all of these boxes, and then you saw inside yourself that it wasn't everything that you had wanted. What was that like for you?
It was, you heard the harder part of my life story just now, but I've also had really beautiful parts in my life story. And I'd say in my mid 30s, I hit like the pinnacle of the beauty of my life story. Actually, I think I'm in the pinnacle of it right now and it keeps evolving. But at that moment, it was the pinnacle, up until that point. And I literally had the life that my 5-year-old self could only dream of. And it was absolutely beautiful. I was so blessed and so grateful to have it. I had the most beautiful husband and the most beautiful children, and I had beautiful homes and family and community and creative pursuits that I had, and philanthropic pursuits, which I love. I love giving back. It's in my nature. It's been since I was a little kid. So I had all these facets of life really fulfilled. And then something hit me like a train hit into me. And I was like, what's missing? And that was so hard, because to have so much in a world that has so much scarcity, to know what scarcity is, to have lived it, and then to have so much, there was such a conflict in me. I felt guilty and shameful for even questioning why wasn't it enough. And I knew in the deepest parts of my essence that something was missing, and I didn't know what it was, but something big was missing. I started even questioning what is missing. There's something missing. Led me down then the spiritual path. And then that's how the spiritual path unfolded. And that's how I found my way back to having a very strong connection with the Creator. And that's gotten me to this point in my life where I wake up every day in like tons of abundance and tons of joy and tons of fulfillment and still tons of desire, where I'm like, what's next? How can I show up better? How can I grow more? What is this next chapter for me? What will I create? How will I give? How will I serve? And that feels so fulfilling. It just feels incredible.
So there's no longer this disconnect between how you're feeling internally and what you're experiencing externally.
No.
It sounds like.
No. And my external feels so robust and whole. So beautifully robust and whole.
I love this word whole. What does wholeness mean to you?
Whole for me is space that's filled in. And how I can say this in the most simplistic of ways is if you can envision a vessel, right? And so that vessel might have some cracks in it. And it might, let's say, maybe it's a flower pot. Let's call it a flower pot. And it's a flower pot filled with dirt, but inside there's a seed and there's a plant, but there are like holes in the dirt where there are air pockets, let's say. And also then there's like cracks in the vase where there's some dirt spilling out. That's not whole. And that's kind of like what it is for your physical body and for your energetic body. And so those spaces are the spaces where light isn't shining. And so how do you fill those spaces in? And that is kind of our life's mission, right? Is to come into this world with spaces in our essence where light isn't shining, fragmentation, we can call it, or cracks. And it's to transform that and fill it with light. And so that's not like a one and done. I think we spoke about this earlier. There's no such thing as a one and done. You don't buy the house and then it's done. It's like gravity, let's say. So gravity in the physical reality is pounding down on our bones. And if you don't do Pilates every day for your entire life, chances are when you're 80, you're going to be hunchback and like 4 inches shorter, right? But if you do
this analogy.
Pilates every single day,
This is a Pilates ad now.
It's a Pilates ad. You're going to have a strong spine and you're not going to lose your height. Well, the same thing is like consciousness and this talking about wholeness. You have the opposing force, which we both learn about in Kabbalah, right? The opposing force is going to show up every day and try to create that space in you. And it's your responsibility every day to not be reactive, to share, to give, to show up with compassion and kindness, to not feed into the ego, and to fill those spaces with light. And so for me, what is wholeness? Wholeness is an essence that is constantly trying to tip the scale of filling more light than allowing more space and more void. And so my essence feels very whole because I work at it on a daily basis, but my external reality also feels very whole. I feel very whole through my relationships and my spiritual practice and my creative pursuits and all the philanthropy I do and the ways in which I show up for the world. It feels very whole. And so that's what whole is to me in a very kind of mental way of explaining it.
Yeah, I love that you said it's, the absence of space.
Yeah.
And in relationship to all those around us, right? In the book, Many Lives, Many Masters, he asks her, how do we learn these lessons that we're meant to learn in this lifetime? And she answers him through relationships. The first, most important one is the one you have with the Creator. And then the one you have with yourself. And then it ripple effects into everyone else.
Our consciousness is the first step to all of it. And so changing the limited beliefs, relinquishing the fear that keeps so many of us hostage to our possibility, getting past all of that, creating new belief systems, creating more limitless mindsets within our operating system, our subconscious, our consciousness, right? But then drawing that into the physical reality. We can't just like live out there in the the stars. We're here for a reason. We're here in this, the Malhut, the like physical reality for a reason, because we're here to bring heaven to earth. And heaven through earth is a state of mind. It's consciousness. There are days where I literally am like, oh my gosh, this is heaven. I am in heaven. And there were days in my life where I genuinely was in hell. And hell and heaven can both be here in this physical reality. And it solely depends on the consciousness of the participant experiencing it.
What has been the hardest limiting belief you've had to overcome?
Oh, I think for me, it was like the storyline of men know better. And I think it started at my birth, like literally the fact that I was born the wrong sex, or like that men have it better. And everyone has the answers within you. All the answers to all your questions you will always find within, as long as you're connected to the Creator. There is no other human that will save you. There's no other human that will give you the answer. We as humans can support each other. We can hold space for each other. We can be there for each other. We can give compassion and kindness. We can create possibility for another human, right, to rise into. But I can't give you the answers to Sabrina's life. Like, I can't save you from the problem you're in.
Yeah.
All of that comes from within. And for me, that big story and this culmination of who I am today is realizing as a woman the awesome power that I have as a woman. And men have amazing power as men. But these are two very different things, like very different things. And one is not better than the other. These are two halves that when they come together, they can amplify and complement and build together. But alone, one is not better than the other. They're just different. You have the Creator, right? And so you have this endless power. It's power. It's this endless light. It's this endless source that is pure. It's clean. It's always giving. It's certain. It's light, right? But as we both learn through Kabbalah, you funnel down through kind of these filters and eventually you get here. And what happens is there is a branch off and you have creation, creators, which is power. But then I'm going to take you on something really wild. You then have energy. So we are living in the realm of time and space, okay? Energy is power in time and space.
Is power in time. Wait, where did the power come from? From the creators?
Power.
Oh, energy?
In the limitless, outside of time and space, where there is no time and space, is pure power alone.
Okay.
It's cause. Literally cause. Power is cause. When you take power into the realm of time and space, when it's confined in time and space, there is energy. Energy is the quantity through which power is experienced. If you can look at it this way, you have creation, which is power, cause, and then you have this energy, which I kind of can look at as the energy of money, right? And so you have a creative part to this reality that is creating, and then you have an energetic part, which is money, which is amplifying creation. How I also can visualize into these two little destinations is you have the creation part, which is power, cause, feminine. And then you have the quantifiable part, which is a stackable part, which is the adding part of energy, which is masculine. And so we as women, as the feminine, we create life, right? We have creation and power running through us, running through our womb, running through who we are. Men are so dynamic in who they are, but they have this energy that needs purpose, that needs creation to then amplify together. And together the two have this like really spectacular, sparkly kind of dance-capade together. And when the two converge, they're able to build something glorious, right? But money alone has no purpose. It needs creation to give it purpose, right? And I kind of look at this from the lens of the feminine and the masculine. We both need each other for different reasons. And it's very important that both sides see the value that each side brings. And money is not the only value to this reality. The warmth of creation, the warmth of the imagination of what could be built and dreamt up, the vessel comes through the woman. And when a man literally plugs in, he plugs into circuitry, he plugs into power that he does not have access to without her. And so we've existed in a structure for 2,000 years that has been very energy, masculine, stackable, quantifiable, wonderful, has its purpose. But what we need more of is valuing the creation side of it and the feminine and the dynamic robustness that women bring to this world. Because without that warmth, this side is kind of cold and sterile. There's a reason why men enjoy being with a woman, because he is literally plugging into the circuitry of power of source. And it's beautiful. These conversations, I think, need to be had where we really, as two sexes, start really understanding the implications and the power that both hold and the value that both bring.
So much of our reality is this extreme, as you mentioned, this duality of one or the other. And it's another takeaway from Many Lives, Many Masters. Like literally any takeaway is in this book. And it was that we live in a world of excess where we are not in balance and not in harmony with nature. And we are consuming more than we create. And so we're going to deplete the universe. And we need to, consume what we grow and have that circuitry sustain us.
This is the quantity versus quality, though. So the quantity needs to keep like more, quantity, because essentially it's an insatiable space or void that wants to be filled with external. When you start taking a spiritual path, when you start connecting to the Creator, that desire for quantity really starts just depleting, because you start getting this whole. You don't need to fill those voids. And so you approach life more from a quality standpoint and from a creationary standpoint. And this is exactly like what you're saying.
How did you find Kabbalah, first of all?
Or
last of all?
The same way everyone else found it. No, I'm joking. Okay, so 5 years ago, I hit that, like the train hit me in the face and I was like, what am I missing? And I started what I'd say is a spiritual path. And so I started doing very deep meditative practices, lots of different like spiritual wellness modalities, like you name it, I've tried it. I've done like bee venom acupuncture, I've done it all. And I'm lucky enough that I was able to do all of these things and see what resonated for me and what didn't. Along that path, I started really being drawn to Judaism. And I started listening to a podcaster called Gedalia Fenster, who is just brilliant. He talks a lot of the teachings of Rav Ashlag and Rabbi Nachman. And they resonated for me because they very much spoke towards these, what I would garner in these very deep meditative states that I would go into. And about 2 years ago, he had a guest on, and it was David Guillaume, who I like to call like the gateway drug into Kabbalah. Like you take one puff of him and you're hooked. Because now that you and I both mentor,
He's gonna love this.
But by the way, now that you and I both mentor Kabbalah, it's like
I'm gonna send this to.
No, but like he literally is the gateway drug into Kabbalah. Like literally, he is. But every single person that walks in when we mentor, it's like, what brought you to Kabbalah? It's like, well, I saw David on Instagram.
Yeah.
Now, this is all divine, by the way. So it's not to say that Kabbalah found me, this wisdom found me through David, through Gedalia, right? Like everything unfolds how it needs to. But he was on Gedalia, and I was driving the car, and I was like, what on earth is this?
Yeah, straight, just
truth with a capital T.
Yeah.
Everything that I was tapping into, he was saying verbatim. And it was 2 months prior, I was talking to the creator, and I was, how do I meet you on a daily basis? I literally was saying, how do I meet you on a daily basis? Not having to go into these very vast, big meditative states. Like, how do I have a relationship with you? And then Kabbalah came my way. And so I downloaded clearly the courses, and I went through like Kabbalah 1, 2, 3 online. And then I was like, why? I need to study this in person. And you and I were in that first class together when the center opened up, and then the rest is history. And it's
rapid fire, Natalie.
Dear. Okay.
What brings you joy?
Oh my gosh, like everything.
What book has changed your life?
My first, I'll have to say the Zohar.
You're the third person on this podcast.
I have to say the Zohar.
When I ask people on this podcast anything related to a book, it's always the Zohar.
The Zohar's first. I'd say second, which was my entryway into spirituality from a book standpoint when I really started reading, was The Four Agreements, which
I love that.
is a beautiful book.
Great book.
Yes.
What is your favorite mantra?
I am everything. I am beauty. I am love. I am kindness. I am health. I am wealth. I am happiness. I am joy. I am service. I am caring. I am sharing. I am giving. I am supporting. It's all of them. I am joy-filled. I am funny. I am laughter. All of them. It's literally I am everything. And the big one for me is always just I am connected, because I think connection is everything.
What's the greatest advice you've received?
Just like show up and like give, like treat people the way you want to be treated. I think if you're showing up in the world coming from a place of giving more than taking, life will flow the way it needs to.
And lastly, what do you believe is your greatest gift?
I think just my nature. I've grown to really love my nature. In the fact that my nature is one giant like hypocrisy. Like I am everything and nothing all at once, and I genuinely think it's beautiful, and I've grown to love every part of myself. And I'm not saying that in like a sappy sort of like that's the right answer sort of way. I've really grown to like genuinely love like all the good parts of me, but also all the bad parts of me. I'm human, and there are times in my life that I've showed up less than human, and there are times in my life that I've showed up superhuman, and I've come to love all of them because I see who all of them are. And so I think that's my biggest gift now, is the fact that I've gotten to the place of loving all those parts, because then those parts can love the rest of the world.
Thank you, Natalie, for sharing
Thank you.
your wisdom.
Thank
and
you for having
understanding.
me and allowing me to spill out all of this that lives in me.
I truly think that this episode is going to open a lot of people's minds to new ways of thinking and to expand their consciousness. So thank you again.
Thank you.
Thanks for tuning in to Binah Says.